Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Windward Buddhist Temple's virtual Dharma Remembrance service this morning. Today we will be remembering those loved ones who have passed away in the month of October. I will ring the Daiking after each name is read and then go immediately to the chanting of Junirai. We will begin this morning's service with the chanting of Vandana Ti-Sarana. This is found on page 7 of the Red Service book, and this will be followed by the Sambujo and an Aspiration. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato Samman Sambuddhassa. Homage to him, the exalted one, the enlightened one, the supremely awakened one. Buddham Saranam Gacchami, Dhammam Saranam Gacchami, Sangham Saranam Gacchami. I go to the Buddha for guidance. I go to the Dharma for guidance. I go to the Sangha for guidance. Namo Amida Butsu, Namanda Butsu, Namanda Butsu. Namanda, 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 Namanda. Do Fortunate are we who, upon having heard the divine truth and having been given everlasting life, may leave this human existence in peace and tranquility, be enveloped in Amida's infinite wisdom and inconceivable compassion. We honor with deep gratitude the members, family, friends, and pets of the Windward Buddhist Temple who have passed away in the month of October. With deepest gratitude to the boundless, inconceivable blessings of Amida Buddha, we take eternal refuge in the three treasures of these teachings. Janet Matsuyo Hiramoto. Emiko Goya. Yeri Kaneko. Dana Yonamine. Wallace Sumikawa. Orono Leo Baird. Stanley Sakimoto. Edith Ichimasa. Yasunosuke Yanagisawa. Namanda, 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 namanda. Keishu tenni shokugyo Amida Sanyo Zoku Song Zai Mi Mel Anako Muryo Bushi Shuine Konjiki Shinjo Nyosen no Shamana Gyo Nyozobu Ryomoku Jonyaku Shodenge Koga Chorai Mida Song Menzen Enjo Nyomandak Igo Yunyo Sennichi Gas Shonyo Tenku Kushira Koga Chorai Mina Song Kanong Jonai Kanjuju Shuju 十名相法諸言両部のまけまんこが将来みなそん無微無垢交渉上修徳経血尿呼吸小され悪徳自在こが将来みなそん実法名門菩薩衆無量小魔女三段一生修上願歴十こが将来みなそん根体保険死者家全音少女名内座大い座上女性の子が将来みなそん実法将来勝負し権限人死安楽戦後尊厳上業子が将来みなそん小無常無我と薬尿水月年よろ一種説法無名字子が将来みなそん非尊仏説無悪名薬無女人悪の不主任死心教非尊子が将来みなそん非尊無量法勉強無少種悪知識往生不退死もない子が将来みなそん打線非尊苦毒寺修善無変了解水小逆善音少女者衛生修上消費行アニ ishin ojo Namandam, 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 namandam. The recitation for today is the Creed number 1. This is found on page 4 of the Red Service book. Let's put our hands together in kansho. We rely upon Amida Tathagata with our whole heart for the enlightenment in the life to come, abstaining from all sundry practices and teachings, and giving up the trust in our limited self. We believe that the assurance of birth comes at the very moment we entrust, and we call the name Namo Amida Butsu in joy and gratitude for the Buddha's compassion. We also acknowledge gratefully the benign benevolence of our founder and the succeeding masters who have led us to believe in this profound teaching. And we do now endeavor to follow throughout our lives the way laid down for us. Namo Amida Butsu, Namanda Butsu. Well, good morning once again to everyone, and especially to the young people here this morning, virtually that is, who are eagerly waiting for Halloween on the last Sunday of this month. Actually, it's next Sunday. There was a time in the not-so-distant past where families would get together and have Halloween parties with the kids. Do you remember this? Kids would bob for apples in a large bucket of water. They would have to try and take an apple out of the water by biting on it. Another game that they used to play was to try and take a bite out of a donut that was hanging on a string. I don't think you would do this today. Back then, no one was worried about bacteria and viruses. But I always thought bobbing for apples was a bit gross, even back in the day. Can you imagine all the kids' saliva all in the water? Trick-or-treating was fun, going house to house. But nowadays, parents take their children to a shopping mall and trick-or-treating at the stores, and it's a lot safer these days. There are some out there who want to do harm to the children. Many, but not all of the shops buy into this, however, and it's a shame. At any rate, I'm glad that the governor has relaxed some of the mandates and will allow trick-or-treating to happen again this year. So let's join me by putting your hands together in reverence as I read these words. To learn Buddhism is to know oneself. To know oneself is to forget oneself. One just is. This state is perfect naturalness, a state of meaningless meaning and purposeless purpose. This is what the Buddha taught. Namo Amida Butsu. Well, the month of October and Halloween is the beginning of a much-waited-for year-end celebrations and fun-filled days and nights of activities for both children and grown-ups alike. We look in anticipation for food and drink as we anxiously wait for the coming Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's celebrations, not to mention the many bowl games on television, the poo-poos, and other liquid refreshments such as root beer and Orion beer that I learned to enjoy. We look upon Halloween as a time for ghosts and goblins, spirits and monsters awaiting our call of trick or treat. Things have changed a bit. Nowadays, kids are dressed up as superheroes or princesses. Are you afraid of ghosts? I used to be deathly afraid of them at one time. My father bought this house in Kailua. This was a German spy house, a former German spy house, and I swear that house was haunted. One night, my sister and I were trying to change the light on the staircase leading up to the second floor, and she was holding the flashlight while I attempted to change the bulb. All of a sudden, I felt this wind blowing against the light fixture. I looked at my sister. I saw her frightened look on her face. That was it. I ran down the stairs ahead of her, ran past my mother who was on a chair in the living room playing on the piano, ran out the back door in the dark night. My mother, who was on crutches because she was afflicted with arthritis, hobbled out the door maybe 10 minutes later, asking, "What happened?" I told her about the ghost in the house, and that night I went to my cousin's house and slept there for 3 nights. I finally went back exhausted from lack of sleep, and I didn't care if the ghost got me or not. Why do you think we are so afraid of ghosts and things that go creeping in the night? How come human beings have come to believe in werewolves that suck your blood in the night, zombies and vampires? Maybe it's because there are so many dangers in the world. There is a lot to fear. For thousands of years, we have lived in nature and we're helpless against this unpredictable power. They were worried about being eaten by dangerous animals in the wild. At night, people huddle together for safety. People didn't understand occurrences such as tsunami, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and hurricanes. We also developed the fear of other humans trying to do harm to us. So we humans have developed lots of fears about the world around us. And those ghosts and goblins may be a way for us to express those fears. And we have come to enjoy them as well. From a Buddhist perspective, we need not be afraid of them. Even if there really were such things as ghosts and goblins, we understand that they too are embraced by Amida Buddha's great compassion and will too become Buddha someday. If we are afraid of something, we must understand that they too are Buddha someday and are ultimately a part of this oneness of life. The oneness of life is that there is nothing that is not connected with me or that is not a part of me. For example, if I meet someone I didn't like, I could still put my hands together in kansho and bow, knowing that that person too is embraced by the Buddha. Then I can realize that it is me that is not likable as well, and maybe a scary person to the other people. Did you know that in Buddhism there is such a thing as a hungry ghost? In Asia, and especially in areas where Taoism is practiced, there is a special observance called the Festival of Hungry Ghosts. As you may know, a hungry ghost is usually depicted as a being with a large but empty stomach, with a long skinny neck, and fire coming out of its mouth. Although they want to eat, they're not able to because everything they place in their mouths turn into fire. Let me show you a picture of one of these hungry ghosts, if I can find it. Hang on a second. Here is a picture of the hungry ghost. They are really creepy looking and clingy. They are hungry and desperate. It is said that they are this way because when they died, they were very confused with excessive attachments to relationships, property, and whatever else that makes people cling on to things. They cling to things and find themselves stuck in the same place and never have the desire to move on. Or even if they do not want to give up anything so that they might be able to move on. The realm of greed, never being satisfied, drug ignition, bigger house, nicer car, the story of Obong. For some, it may be nothing more than a chance to vent and grapple with issues that most of us would rather not deal with, but plays on our consciousness anyway. Things such as war, crime, social transgressions, and wild revelry. Not coincidentally, some of these things actually corresponds to Buddhism's 5 precepts that admonishes us to refrain from killing, stealing, misconduct, lying or slandering, and the excessive taking of intoxicants that abuse the body and leads to negligence. In celebrating Halloween and all of its fun and partying, let us as human beings reflect on the so-called 3 poisons in Buddhism that the Buddha often talked about. In India at the time of the Buddha, Brahmins kept 3 sacrificial fires burning throughout the day in their homes. Shakyamuni Buddha took this and turned it into a metaphor relating to the 3 fires, which are greed, hatred, and delusion or ignorance. In this way, his students could understand and relate to something that they were familiar with. This wisdom of Shakyamuni is common throughout his teachings. Later, the reference to the 3 fires became the 3 poisons. Living your life free of greed, hatred, and delusion, you allow for the release of ignorance and the way of wisdom. That is, you lessen your clinging and grasping to things that are worthless and simply clutter your mind. Greed is the excessive desire for possessions. It is especially greedy to desire wealth just for the sake of being wealthy. It creates an inner hunger, and we're always striving for an unattainable goal. We mistakenly believe that our happiness is dependent on that goal, but once we attain it, it offers no long-lasting satisfaction. If you have a desire for possessions and wealth, you suffer from a form of clinging. So this brings you happiness that only fades. Then you look for something else to grasp and to cling to. You eventually find it and experience only fleeting happiness once more. The wheel of samsara continues to turn. During this period of greedy, clinging, and grasping, you may go through bouts of anxiety, panic, depression, or other things. You may be frantic and then drained. You may be one or the other, unable to lead a productive life. Your ego has total control of you. Let go of the false construction of the ego. Hatred is intense. Hatred is intense dislike, hostility, and aversion for others and things. You feel someone has done you wrong in some way, and you can't let go of that feeling. You rather ruin everything in your life because this illusion has you in its grip. Hatred is a blind rage that smothers or flares up without virtue. It rears itself within your mind in a blind fashion. It causes you to speak and act in non-virtuous ways. With the poison of hatred, we create conflict and enemies in the world around us and within our own being. Delusion or ignorance is fixed false belief. It is very resistant to reason. Your ego attacks truth with hopeless confrontation, prevents one from seeing and experiencing the right view. Delusion is the false construct of your ego. It is clinging and grasping in a way that covers up the truth of reality. If we think now about the word poison, we find that a poison can also be an antidote and vice versa. It often depends on the dosage. While we don't usually think of vaccines as poisons, the fact is that they can act as poisons if given in the wrong amounts, or for the wrong illness, or in the wrong way. Think also of an anti-venom. An anti-venom is an antidote to snake or insect bites that's made using the same venom. In somewhat the same manner, then, even the three poisons can become antidotes if we first become aware that they are in fact poisons. If we do not awaken to the reality that it is our self-made poisons that causes our suffering, then we cannot even begin to seek out an antidote. Awakening to that reality is not enough. However, trying to rid ourselves of the poison is the next step. The Buddha Dharma can give us a medicine chest of possible antidotes. On the other hand, we might find ourselves unable to help ourselves because we hurt so much. For those of us who find ourselves in this position, there is only, from the Jodo Shinshu perspective that is, there is only the Nembutsu, Namo Ami Dabutsu, which is meant for beings such as us. It is our connection, as it were, to Amida. It is our way of expressing our humble gratitude for the true, real antidote. So anyway, please reflect on the three poisons in our lives as we go from house to house next Sunday, I mean. Please enjoy the evening next week, full of children and the adults as well. Don't forget to floss and brush after eating all that candy. And as they say in the greeting cards, happy haunting. Namo Amida Butsu. Join me once again by putting your hands together in reverence. To learn Buddhism is to know oneself. To know oneself is to forget oneself. One just is. This state is perfect naturalness, a state of meaningless meaning and purposeless purpose. This is what the Buddha taught. Namo Amida Butsu.
Namo Amida Butsu.
Know that the primal vow of Amida makes no distinction between people young and old, good and evil. Only Shinjing is essential, for it is the vow to save the person whose karmic evil is deep and grave and whose blind passions abound. Namo Amida Butsu. Namandao. Thank you very much for attending this virtual Dharma service, and we hope to see you again next week at the same time. In the meantime, keep well. Goodbye.